Hello, my name is Michael Hernandez. I'm a student at the University of Connecticut. Today we're going to talk about brownfield remediation in Connecticut, and it's actually a success story. First, there's two questions we're concerned with for our research. Are there successful brownfield remediation sites in Connecticut? If so, what are the implications of successful remediation sites for the urban built environment and the economy? Brownfields are defined by the Environmental Protection Agency as a property the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which may be complicated by the presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. It is estimated that there are more than 450,000 brownfields in the U.S. Cleaning up and reinvesting in these properties increases local tax bases, facilitates job growth, utilizes existing infrastructure, takes development pressures off of undeveloped open land, and both improves and protects the environment. Brownfields in Connecticut are also defined by state law as any abandoned or underutilized site where redevelopment, reuse, or expansion has not occurred due to the presence or potential presence of pollution in the building, soil, or groundwater that requires investigation or remediation before or in conjunction with the redevelopment, reuse, or expansion of the property. This is similar to the EPA definition. Now, we are concerned specifically with brownfield remediation. There is an office that manages this, known as the Office of Brownfield Remediation and Development, and their mission is to return brownfield sites across the state to productive reuse, including mixed use, residential, commercial, industrial, retail, and open space uses. We're going to be looking at some examples later in the presentation that actually cover all of these goals. There are a lot of success stories in Connecticut. Places like Hartford, East Hartford, New Britain, Meriden, Shelton, Waterbury, Bridgeport, Stamford, New London, Norwich, Handom, and Winstead. Our case studies are concerned with Stamford and Bridgeport. Our raison d'etre, or reason for doing these two sites, is that Stamford is one of the largest urban redevelopment sites in the country, and that was built over a remediated site. Bridgeport is a formerly major industrial hub, and Connecticut as a whole is an industrial hub. So actually having all these brownfields speaks volumes to a legacy of a lot of industry in the state. Let's start with Stamford. There's two sites we're concerned with here, Harbor Point and Harley-Davidson. Harbor Point is a multi-phased, mixed-use, transit-oriented development that's located in 5 areas in a brownfield overlooking Stamford Harbor. They've built about 4,000 units of residential housing, a new hotel complex, as well as retail, office, and commercial space. And it was funded with $8 million of targeted brownfield redevelopment loans, $1 million in regional brownfield grants, and $450,000 from the municipal brownfield pilot program. And there was some community involvement as well to try to get the community involved, get some input. And the results have been wildly successful. This development keeps on growing, it keeps on expanding, and it's attracted thousands of residents, dozens of businesses. And again, it's regarded as one of the largest redevelopment sites in the entire country. And this is all built on former brownfields. So Harley-Davidson was built on an abandoned machine shop site. It's part of the EPA's Brownfields Assessment Demonstration Pilot Project. The funding included $200,000 of an EPA grant, $160,000 in Brownfields Cleanup Revolving Loan Fund Pilot Program, and that's a loan as well. There was also community involvement here. And actually, the Neighborhood Revitalization Zone Group was also involved in the Harbor Point project. And this plot of land was converted into a Harley-Davidson showroom. Now, let's move to Bridgeport. We're going to be looking at the Gateway site and the Seaview Industrial Park site. Let's start with Gateway. This is the former Jenkins Valve site. So it was an industrial area. It was funded the remediation for $10 million in cleanup fees, $7 million of a city bond, and $200,000 in an EPA Brownfields grant. Unfortunately, there is no information on community involvement for this project. The success of the ballpark spurred interest for redevelopment of the adjacent Sprague Meter and Drummond McCall sites, which have been transformed into a 10,000-seat arena and parking garage. And recently, the ballpark, which is actually pictured on screen, was recently renovated and converted into an amphitheater. The other site in Bridgeport is the Seaview Industrial Park. It's a former industrial park, and there were 2 blighted buildings that were demolished, and 120 tons of hazardous materials and 1,145 tons of non-hazardous materials were removed from the 2 properties. Cleanup of the properties was completed in 2005, and the project was completed in 2008 overall. It was funded with $7.8 million in cleanup fee and $6 million in redevelopment funding. Unfortunately, there was also not a lot of information about the community involvement here, but we do know that the redevelopment of the Seaview Industrial Park positively affects the community by removing blight, improving roads, and upgrading the sewer and water systems, ultimately creating an aesthetically pleasing industrial neighborhood admired by the community. There are several implications of brownfields for the built environment of Connecticut cities and for its economy. For instance, these eyesores become destinations, as was the case of Harbor Point and Stamford, or the Gateway site in Bridgeport. Both attract people from outside of town and have actually become very trendy areas. There's also a very clear intersection between urban development and brownfield remediation. And there's also adjacent development that can occur, as was the case in Bridgeport, with new amenities or new businesses moving in. There's also growth in other neighborhoods, like in Stamford, where downtown has been growing a lot alongside Harbor Point. And there could just be overall new development. So here's my conclusion. There was actually a 2020 study by the EPA that looked at some of the benefits of brownfields, and we know that there's a location efficient benefit due to the central location of brownfields and their connections to existing infrastructure. Typically, brownfields are centrally located in metro areas with good connections to local infrastructure, including roadways and stormwater utilities. So it's possible to reuse this existing infrastructure. And we know from the geology course that that's one of the goals for the 21st century. We have so much built environment that we should be reusing and repurposing, and that should be part of the sustainability equation. There's also job growth and reduction of impervious surface expansion by 73 to 80% in some cases, and there are less miles traveled. Again, there is a use of existing developed land, can fill vacant lots, and it contributes to the broader goal of sustainability. So we hope to see more brownfield remediation in Connecticut and across the country. This was Michael Hernandez from the University of Connecticut. Thanks for tuning in.